Hello. Today is September 19th, 2023, and this is SIG Node weekly meeting. Welcome, everybody. We have some agenda today. Let's start with Peter, Air Commander. CRI stats metrics gap.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Cool. So I wanted to, yes, I have a couple of two different topics. And so the first one, I don't have anything to track this yet, but basically I wanted to talk with the forum about the scheme of metrics gathering in for CRI stats. So basically right now, the proposal as is saying that the CRI implementation will gather the metrics for the pods and containers, where CAdvisor was previously collecting the metrics for many more C groups than that. Like for instance, it collects it for system.slice and also like the parents of like, the kubepod burstable slice, or, kubepod burstable if it's C group FS, C group driver. And so I wanted to talk about what everyone's thoughts were on the way to address that gap. Like basically there will become, if we move strictly to the CRI for the metrics gathering, then there'll become this gap of like, we won't be reporting metrics on the system slice where we were previously doing so. My thought on this was to have a mixed mode basically of this, C group, so have CAdvisor continue to collect the stats for the system slice, and basically all of the C groups that CRI implementation is in gathering for. But the one question that I had was, do we want to make that customizable? And well, the second question is, what should we do for the intermediary C groups within the kubepod slice? So the reason I ask about customizable is I can imagine a world in which a user cares about like the kubepod's burstable usage. There used to be metrics being reported on it. If we just ignore the entirety of the kubepod's slice, then there would no longer be those metrics being reported. If we made it customizable, like have a flag in the kubelet that says like CAdvisor collect the metrics for these C groups, then that would give the user control over like, ignoring the whole kubepod slice if they only care for the pods and container stats, but continuing to collect for like system slice or, any additional sort of C groups that they want to define. Right now, it's just static. It's just like a static value. CAdvisor is collecting only for a couple of different C group paths. So so those are kind of the two questions that I think we'll want to answer. Does anyone have any thoughts on this or any questions or anything?
I know that metrics are not part of GA API, but I would assume that many people took dependency on them. So just disregarding them, definitely not an option. I like the idea that you're sharing with conditionally switch like subset of metrics from CAdvisor to CRI stats.
Yeah, basically throughout this whole process, we got some early feedback from Clayton like 2 years ago, basically declaring that the metrics that we report are a stable API, even though we don't promise any sort of stability for them because they've been depended upon for the last 26 releases or something like that. So we basically have to treat it as such, and we can't really change, which is why it feels like, even though I personally don't find the utility in like reporting the usage of the top level kubepod slice or something like that, or like the kubepod's burstable or something. I think that we probably have to maintain that. And I think a compromise between my position of like, why would you need that? And someone else's potential position of like, hey, I want that, is having it be customizable. So have a kubelet flag that's like, these are the slices that you, or like, these are the rejects of the slices that you should collect for. cAdvisor. And then a user can be like, okay, I actually don't care about the system slice at all, or I don't care about QPod burstable slice collection up and down until, you know, we actually collect the pod and container sets. So those are my thoughts.
So if we'll switch some metrics to use one mechanism, some metrics use different mechanism, is there any issue with metrics inconsistency? Like, let's say size of a high level C group burstable or whatever, it may not be greater than some of all the pods inside the slice, right?
Right.
Because we just collected in different time. Is there any concerns about it?
I think that's possible. I think that the best that we can do is, you know, put together end-to-end tests to ensure that the CRI implementations are doing their best to prevent that from happening. I think that it kind of ends up being inevitable. I mean, again, we never have made any sort of guarantees about the constitution of the metrics. So like, theoretically speaking, there's nothing that says that we couldn't have the metrics be reported at different frequencies so that the like values don't match up between the different metrics. Like we don't promise anything about frequency. We don't promise anything about sort of, how we're like even calculating the metrics. Like we say like, this is the, you know, CPU usage seconds or something like that, but we don't really specifically say like, we promise that this will be the CPU usage total over the CPU usage, you know, the time frequency between when cAdvisor does the collection loop. So things like that, you know, we haven't really made any promises. So I'm not sure if we should, you know, work really hard to maintain that. I don't know.
At least we need to document it and make sure that
Yeah.
at least collection interval match, and we can get some consistency, at least like close to be consistent.
Right. So it sounds like there isn't, at least from you, Sergey, and I haven't heard anyone chiming in, there isn't any opposition to having a configurable list of C groups that cAdvisor collects from so that a user can continue having the metrics that they want. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think transition should be handled, like configurable transition is fine with me. Like we need to move forward. We cannot just get stuck on one API, but we need to provide some way to migrate. And once we migrated everything to CRI stats, maybe we can start thinking of deprecating old metrics and saying that if you need those metrics, you may need to run your own cAdvisor or do something similar to that.
Yeah. I think that makes sense.
And
we could even evaluate that for.
I mean, I don't want anything of that to be blocking like migrating to CRI stats. CRI stats is a good thing overall. Let's concentrate on making it safe for customers, but move forward.
Yeah. All right, I agree. Cool.
Do you mind if I interject with another metrics question? I have another topic.
I do not.
Okay, so yeah, I'm here to ask advice, and maybe somebody knows some history about it. So we recently observed some working set bytes to be 0, and this working set bytes is collected by cAdvisor. It is collected as I can show exactly how it's got. Oh, I need to show my screen. Anyway, let me share my screen. Okay. So the issue we observed and that working set bytes is 0, and the way we collect working set bytes in cAdvisor is by getting usage memory and total inactive file and getting like subtracting one from another. And we have this if statement here. So if usage is less than total inactive file, then working set is 0. I don't know where this logic is coming from, and I don't know enough about Linux kernel to understand how it even can be possible. That's why I'm here to ask if anybody knows and if anybody can give advice. But what it results into is that metrics server, it has some logic that calculates uh, pod usage, and it has this logic. This logic is saying that if CPU usage by individual container or memory usage by individual container is 0, then it will disregard metrics for entire pod. So assuming that container is some weird state and it's inconsistent, has inconsistent metrics. So I'm challenging this logic in metrics server, but to challenge this logic completely, I need to have a proof that working set by 0 is a real possibility, and it's not a error in how we collect data. So if anybody has any opinions about it or knows how it can be 0, why this if statement was introduced in this C advisor logic, please comment on this issue. And it's yet another example where metric server taking dependency on how we collect metrics and what exactly metric consistency is supposed to be. If anybody has any quick thoughts, please jump in.
I mean,
Okay.
in general, it could just be it wasn't collected, right, for the process for some reason.
Yeah, metric servers think that 0 working set bytes means that process is terminated. But we observe that it can be 0 on some process that sleeps a lot. We just don't have access to this environment, so we cannot prove one way or another. So there still may be some logic that break a collection.
Sergey, sorry for delay. I have an email to our kernel dev, so I'll let you know when he responds on this one.
Thank you. Yeah, if anybody knows something, please let me know. And this is another example where other tools take dependency on how we collect metrics. That's why we need to be very careful with how we change it. Okay, Peter, sorry for interrupting you. You wanted to talk about config-D.
Yeah, no problem. So the other piece that I had was, yeah, Sergey, you had as feedback potentially as a beta follow-up to have the kubelet be able to view the effective, or have a user be able to easily view the effective configuration of a kubelet. I was wondering what you were kind of imagining for that, as we look forward towards beta. As far as I understand, there is like a kubelet config Z option, which would do kind of that. It doesn't necessarily say the source. Adding the source would kind of involve like updating the kubelet configuration options to all have like the source location to have like a duplicated well, it could actually, we could use reflect and have a map basically for each of the fields to say which it came from. But yeah, I'm just wondering what you were kind of imagining with this.
Yeah, I mostly wanted config Z to be reflective of what kubelet is using. And I wasn't sure where config Z is taking its data. So if it's taking merged configuration and it's like completely reflecting what kubelet is working against, then it's totally fine with me, because once you have config Z, you can implement anything else on top of it by analyzing it and exposing
Cool.
the way you want.
Yeah, we can have, I'll make sure that we have some sort of test for that to double check that. I would be, given how the implementation is, shocked that that wouldn't be how it works, but it would. That's a good thing to check, and I'll add that as beta criteria to have an end-to-end test to double check that.
Yeah,
cool.
I mostly use config Z for feature gates checks before, so I don't know what else it doesn't have. So
right. Cool. Yeah, we can check that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
So next is Wipe House.
Yeah. Hi. I'm audible. Hello.
Hello, we can hear you all right.
Yeah. So I was just investigating in the eviction hard, and I have reached to this eviction hard proposal, and which this was mentioned like when it will be proposed, the existing flag like image high threshold and image low threshold like will be deprecated. So till now they are not being deprecated. Like, so I want to confirm this for the customer, for my customer, like if they are deprecating soon, or is there any plan ongoing in the community side for this? So I want to hear from the community uh, what's the take.
So saying one of the caps saying that these fields will be deprecated,
Yeah.
but they were never deprecated.
Yeah. So last year also I was like confirmed like Derek has answered this, like this was to be deprecated, but due to some things like it was not deprecated. So I just want to confirm like is there any work ongoing, or is there any plan in the near future for this?
We have two relevant caps in the space. So first is uh, we what is it called, like enhanced garbage collection policies. We will be doing TTL on image uh, liveness, and once image is around too long and never used for that period of time, it will be removed. It's not directly relevant to this one, but it's close. And another one is about separation of image FS and node FS. You can search for these caps and ask either of them if they want to take this deprecation into scope. I think if fields weren't deprecated, it means that there is additional work needed to deprecate them. So if you want to dig up what this work was and initiate this work, you can think about doing it soon. But I don't think anybody actively working on that right now.
Okay. Just I want to hear this, like it is not being deprecated. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and then I can speak for the two caps Peter and I are working on. I don't think we've made any. We have not. That was not included at all on our radar about deprecating those fields.
Okay. Okay. Okay, then thank you. I think that will work for me.
Yeah, thank you for bringing it up. We have so much of tech debt and some things that we said we will be doing, but we never did. So yeah, it's always surprising. Dixie, do you want to talk about PSI metrics?
Yes, I would also like to present.
Okay, let me make you a presenter. Okay, you now can be able to present.
I wanted to talk about the KEP for PSI based actions on the node. So I'll quickly summarize it. So there is a blocker here though. So this KEP is dependent on run C 120. There is a change that needs to go in. And Mrunal is helping me see if we can get unblocked on this. Right now, the timeline for this is October mid to end, and it might not align with the implementation in Gates 129. So the goal is there are going to be two phases in this. One would be to have PSI metrics integrated in the kubelet, and that would be exposed in the metrics endpoint. The second phase would be to utilize these PSI metrics to set node conditions and take actions on the following. I'll quickly go over the design. So today, this is how the kernel stores the PSI metrics. So to integrate this, we would have to add two new data structures, one for the entire row PSI data and then PSI stats. And we will expose this in the metrics API. Sergey mentioned that like today to be able to read the PSI metrics from run C, we are using C advisor. But if the C advisor less change is implemented before it, we wouldn't need it. I needed some feedback mainly for phase 2. So once the PSI metrics are integrated, we want to have some actions based on the PSI. So for that, I have recommended that we introduce a new config parameter in kubelet that would allow users to set the pressure threshold beyond which they would want to take actions on their nodes. And for that, I wanted to see if we could add three new node conditions for each resource: node CPU contention pressure, memory pressure, and disk pressure. And kernel collects the PSI data like here for three different time frames. One is 10 seconds, 60 seconds, and 300 seconds. So we could use these specifically 10 seconds and 60 seconds to see if we want to take an action. So say if the 60 seconds PSI is above threshold, then maybe we could record an event that would indicate there is a high resource pressure. And if if the PSI is above threshold and is still trending higher, by trending higher we could see that if the last 10 seconds pressure is also higher than the threshold, in that case we could set the node condition for high resource contention pressure and also taint the node by making the change in the controller code so that no new pods are scheduled on this particular node because the node is under high pressure. And the phase 2 could be guarded behind this feature flag so that we can get enough feedback and we like perform enough testing to understand what the default threshold could be set, and then on the basis of that we can decide whether we want to do the beta of this feature or not. So I plan to send the PR for this KEP today, and just wanted to make sure that people around are aware. And if you have any feedback, please feel free to share.
Thanks, Dikshit. I think the default will only be clear once we do a lot of testing, right? It will be driven by the testing that we do.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, we don't want to. That's why it's better to have it in phase 2. Phase 1 would just be integrating the PSI metrics because it's needed. Like
Yeah.
there are a lot of requests around it, and then phase 2. For phase 2, we can first have the POC in 129, just POC, and then do enough testing and think about launching it in the next K8s version.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Yeah, that's all. That's all from my end. Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, I just want to say I think it's really awesome to start with adding them initially and maybe just reporting them as conditions, and then later once we have more information and usage, we can come up with follow-up caps to do things like the UMD or other things we've talked about in the past, right? So, but I think this built a good foundation for adding that later.
I wonder how we'll be collecting feedback on that. Is there any ideas?
Maybe something like descheduler could be a way to play around with it initially. We can start convicting pods based off of these values before it actually is going to queue. We got basically a place to play around with it. I'm not sure if they want that as a feature, but it's you could hack on it to make it work and see how it behaves.
Okay.
I'm also excited about this. This is really nice.
Awesome.
Okay. Let's go next. Swati.
Hi, everyone. I did share this item in this sidecar container working group as well, so people who attended that meeting would have some context. But the general idea is that we want to allocate CPUs at a container level, in the sense that currently from pod quality of service point of view, if a pod has if a pod belongs to guaranteed quality of service class, and within the container we have request for CPUs as integral, that's only when CPU manager would allocate exclusive CPUs. But there were use cases that were highlighted as part of sidecar group conversations that apply to containers in general. And I wanted to kind of discuss that with the group here. What I'm thinking is that maybe we can pursue and have an explicit way of indicating that a container requires exclusive CPUs, and then based on a CPU manager scope kubelet flag that we can add to kubelet, we would have the ability to observe a container independently, kind of independent to its quality of service. So I did kind of share the general idea and was looking for feedback on this. And I was wondering if this is something we want to pursue in 129 cycle.
Yeah, so discussed on sidecar working group. This feature will be very useful for sidecar customers, but not necessarily limited to sidecar. And another considerations is we have more and more plugins in NRI that will do some CPU allocation. But typically what happened, as Swati also pointed out, that NRI plugins would not use like CPU manager, so unlikely will be any conflict in whatever we implement.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
have to
and
figure out. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, just the general scope of this proposal is that we'd be making changes at kubelet level, and then we need some changes at pod spec level to explicitly indicate that the container requires exclusive CPU. So that's kind of the general idea. The only thing that we need to be careful about is ensuring that the container gets the guarantees that it would expect with exclusive allocation, because if the pod is no longer a guaranteed pod, we would still require, the container that is requesting exclusive CPUs to have kind of similar guarantees. And in order to do that, we would probably have to make changes to the quality of service evaluation logic and take into consideration pods that have this requirement explicitly indicated in the spec. So that's kind of the key, or rather the summary of this proposal in general. And I think we have been having some discussions trying to figure out from use case perspective as well if this makes sense, and that's essentially it.
Yeah,
But
we-
I haven't seen your proposal, so I will take a look at after the meeting offline. But I think we can combine it with what Marcus is working on. So the explicit declaration of the quality of service per pod and per container, and when we can hook the CPU manager to it, if you want.
Cool. Yeah, sure. Sounds good. Just take a look at, the general idea I have, and, I'm kind of open on how we want to express this resource requirement. I just kind of provided one way of doing it, but like hooking up with quality of service class proposal or any other way, I think I'm open to it as long as we have a way.
Yeah, we
It may
talked
be
it
useful
this.
to think about all the combinations and how, if we can
Yeah.
always determine the QoS class based on what's specified, or we need an explicit field for it. And if we do, like, what are the downsides? Like, can there be a burstable which ends up using much more? Sorry, Marcus, go ahead.
Yeah, I had on my task list take a look at this proposal, but yeah, I also promised to take a look at that. So yeah, thanks for bringing it up again to remind me.
And I think just the last question, like I would like to work on this on 129 timeframe, like whether we think that we should kind of track this fully or not, just in the background. But if you want to officially, make sure that this becomes part of 129 cycle, I think I'd need explicit reviewers, approvers, and identify priorities and all those nice things.
Yeah, I think first we need agreement on a cap, Swati. So that'll be the first
Okay,
goal.
sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and since there is an API change, try to find somebody to look at API early, or even like stop by SIG architecture meeting.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Sergey.
Okay, next topic is vaping.
Hey, it's me, right? Hey, Weapon?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I just need the preview for the PR. So I think I answered the concern. There's a concern there. And yeah, I think, yeah, Swati, right? You're the reviewer? You,
Yeah, I was reviewing this PR. I think
yeah.
the main concern that I had as part of this PR is we are changing a very major design decision that was made when CPU Manager was introduced, and that was that we don't want the shared pool to get exhausted. With this proposal, what we are doing is we are kind of removing reserve CPUs from the shared pool, which kind of makes sense. But as a side effect of that, we can end up in a scenario that we have all guaranteed pods running on a node, and we are not able to support, best effort or burstable pods that should be running on shared pool. So that is kind of the main concern that I had.
Yeah, understood. Yeah. So I reply in the comment. I think so. The issue you're saying, your concern is like the share pool should not be exhausted, right? We need to at least have some CPU for non-guaranteed container, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we have a check in a CPU assignment. That's kind of blocking if you. We can change the more than to more than or equal to. So if you,
But
yeah,
but
yeah.
see, I think the problem with that is that here in this case, we are assuming that a pod or a container is requesting CPUs. We could have containers that belong to best effort quality of service class and that are not explicitly requesting CPUs. And we are saying with this proposal that we are okay for those kind of pods to be evicted. And in addition to that, there could be pods that are previously, based on the existing behavior of or the resource allocation of the node. Initially, best burstable pods were admitted because there were enough resources. But down the line, guaranteed pods came, and now those best burstable pods are going to be evicted because resources are no longer available. So that means there's going to be a lot of churn on the node and on the cluster, and that's a major change of behavior. So I just want us to be conscious as a community that this is what we are getting to, and be very conscious that this could be a very major change that could impact a lot of users who are not expecting for all of a sudden now burstable and best effort pods to start getting evicted.
Okay. So, what's our position here? Are we going to try to merge the PR, or what should we do? Like, or after merging it, we try to fix that. Yeah.
No, see, I think the issue in general, I understand that it's something that we want to fix, but I'm not fully sure the way we are fixing is the right approach, because of the reasons I just mentioned.
Right. So, how can we proceed to the next step to finalize which direction to go? Yeah.
I think in general, from my point of view, I think we'd have to look at some alternative approaches of solving this problem. At this stage, this proposal seems to have the shortcomings that I've highlighted, but I don't right now on the top of my head have a solution that would address the issue itself, but I'm not saying that this is an issue that we shouldn't solve. So I guess the answer is we keep thinking about better solutions for making sure that, you know, we solve the problem and not cause regressions.
Okay, no regression. I see. Yeah. Who can I follow up with to discuss a solution? Is it you or Sergey or like?
Yeah, I think me, Francesco, Kevin Close would be another person that you can refer to. He's been working in resource management space for a while.
Okay. Are you guys available for like meeting or yeah, or just email or yeah?
Sure. I think we actively kind of monitor Slack. So if you want to start a Slack thread to discuss potential solutions, we'll be open to that.
Okay. Okay. Sure. Yeah. Thank you. We'll
Thank
follow
you.
up.
No, I really appreciate. I think you've put a lot of work towards this, but I think we just need to make sure that, you know, we are doing the right thing and not causing confusion and problems for the users that, you know, because not everyone cares about exclusive CPU allocation and these kind of scenarios, but impacting all the users, which and a lot of them use best effort and burstable pods, impacting them is a very major change. So we need to be careful around that.
Yep. Understood. Yeah. Yeah. It's my first time sending a public PR. So yeah. Okay.
Oh, thank you for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah. Then go to the next one. Yeah.
Okay, with that we get to the end of agenda. Yeah, nothing new. Thank you, everybody. If anything else, please speak up now. Otherwise, oh, I see somebody in the document. No, nothing new. Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of your day. Bye.
Thank you.